button. Let me try
Yep.
that again.
There we go.
I've done this like 4 times in the last 3 weeks. I'm an idiot.
Trial by repetition, I think.
Yeah. All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Racers News Network Live. A little bit of change of pace tonight. We're not going to be talking about drag racing. We're going to be talking about road racing. We're going to talk autocross. We're going to talk teaching how to rebuild motors and how to weld and build your own Subaru that can go up to Mount Washington in New Hampshire and kick some ass, even though you kind of had some stuff working against you. So our guest tonight is going to be Amy Dilks. She finished second in her class at Climb to the Clouds this year in 2021. Amy's got an awesome story. I had a chance to kind of read up on her a little bit. Got to check her car out at Climb to the Clouds. And last week I was like, hey, I said, I have this little podcast deal. I said, would you be interested in coming on and talking a little bit? And guess what? There she is. Now, I know we have a lot of the Northeast Rally and Road Race contingent watching tonight, and I know my buddy Flat Spot, also known as Jeff Denmead, is going to be watching too. Jeff, I've known Jeff for years. He's awesome. But everybody, please welcome Amy Dilks to our show. How you doing, Amy?
Hello. Good. Very good.
So, kind of you got an awesome story, but obviously we have to go talk about this car right here that you ran a few weeks ago at Climb to the Clouds, and what happened leading up to Mount Washington 2021.
So I guess the story of Mount Washington 2021 started back in the application process, way back before the pandemic. Put my hat in the ring, as it were, and ended up on the wait list. And you know, the event got delayed, so continued to be on the wait list. And since everything was going on, the car was sitting for a bit. And when I got the call about 6.5 weeks before the event, saying, hey, you know, wait lists opened up, you're in the event, I said yes. And then I went and had an accident and broke my collarbone, which, you know, it happens. I can't do things the easy way. And so luckily I had just pushed the car onto my friend's lift right before, like 2 days before I broke my collarbone. It had gotten pushed by me, my friend, and his sons and my dad onto his lift. So I was going to check over it for the event. So ended up starting the car, ran fine, drained the oil, and it was just that, you know, head gasket slurry milkshake. And I assumed that, you know, it's a Subaru. It probably blew a head gasket. This engine has been in the car since 2017. We, you know, the previous Climb to the Clouds event in 2017, it was purchased overnight by friends and family and fans, and we swapped it overnight then, and I didn't touch it. So I figured, you know, it could use some love, some care. So ended up pulling it all apart, And because I only run water with water wetter, I believe when I drained it for it to sit for a while, some of the water stayed in some of the coolant passages. And unfortunately, frozen water has a lot of force behind it and ended up cracking one of the head casings. Good news was I had a spare head casing sitting in my garage, so ordered a full gasket rebuild kit, came with the valve seals and everything, and basically just built it OEM spec from the ground up for this event, with the help of my dad and my friend, just because I had, you know, a arm to do things with, which was not what I was expecting, but it was probably something that needed to be done. Again, since I hadn't really touched the engine at all since I came into owning it, and I did nothing but race it, add a bigger turbo, put more things on it. You know, nothing in my ownership was done aside from oil changes that probably helped it. So it needed a rebuild either way. But that was leading up to the event, to the point where I was getting tuned at EFI Logics the Thursday at noon. I was, you know, we were strapping the car to the dyno and everyone's like posting all the waiting in tech line for Climb to the Clouds. And I'm like, I'll be there soon, guys. But tuning went fine aside from the heater core started leaking on the poor tuner's feet. We rerouted the hose there, and car ran perfectly. We added a restrictor, which is why I needed the retune for the class, P1 class. We had to make a little restrictor for the new turbo, and hauled ass up to Mount Washington to unfortunately missed tech in the morning, but I had already made everyone aware that I was kind of going to be running late anyway. Got tech that morning. Unfortunately, the way that my fuel lines were routed were outside the cage but inside the body geometry, and because so many recent events had involved fire, or, you know, and cars catching on fire, they were having issues with it. They didn't want to take any risks and kind of asked me, or told me rather, to reroute those fuel lines inside the cage geometry so that they wouldn't be pinched in case I went off, which was totally, it was a bit of a setback, but at the same time, it kind of needed to get done anyway. So luckily the parts store in Gorham had all of the fittings that I needed, and cut and ran new fuel lines at the bottom of Mount Washington on Friday, and then had a great event other than that. So it was never a boring day. Never a boring day.
If you got to show up and just kind of chill out, you probably wouldn't know what to do with yourself. Is that a safe assumption?
Yes. I don't think I've ever had an event that was just show up, chill out, race, and be fine. There's always other racers. I hear that is a thing that happens. I'm sure statistically someone has to have that life. That is not my life. It's always show, you know, do a bunch of stuff, throw the car in the trailer, go to the event, do more things, and then, you know, zip ties, duct tape. We'll make it work.
A couple of VIP fittings and you'll be off and good to go, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, because I was funny. I was at the hotel with my son Thursday night, actually lounging by the pool, not to brag or anything, but and I remember seeing after seeing it Friday, I was like, hey, I saw that go by the hotel about 9:30 on Thursday night.
That was me. Yeah. Yeah. Because unfortunately, where I was leaving Connecticut was actually more south than where I live in New York. So
Okay.
technically, leaving from Connecticut didn't save me any time, unfortunately. But once I had made the calculation of like how long it was going to take me, I was just like, you know what, I'm not going to speed because I don't want to have a speeding ticket on top of the other shenanigans that were going on that weekend.
Bad thrash to get there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Friday morning comes, you get all that stuff taken care of. Saturday is bottom half of the
Practice.
hill, if I remember right.
Yep.
How did that go for you? Because for those that hang on, I'm sorry,
There you go.
completely got to cut you off for a sec. For
We know
those
what
that
you're
have never
talking
been to
about.
Mount Washington, they run practice in two different segments. They run usually on Friday, they'll run bottom half depending on the weather, and then Saturday's top half. Well, they flip-flopped and they ran top half Friday, bottom half on Saturday. So how did it end up going for you on Saturday?
Saturday went pretty well. The first practice run up the hill, I took super cautiously. This had been the first time I had been in the car in about 18 months. I had done events in 2019, but then really didn't do anything in 2020 and really hadn't done anything with the car in 2021 up until Mount Washington. So it was kind of an all systems check. Just because of the mad dash to get the engine all rebuilt. I didn't have the luxury of kind of taking it anywhere and doing oh, does it stop? Does it go? Does it turn? Kind of thing. So why not find out at the bottom half of Mount Washington? So got a good cage. And so the first one was, almost nothing. I did have a little puff of coolant as I was kind of doing the turnaround. They were parking me, but I assumed, just because there's a lot of grade in that bottom section. So I'm assuming the engine was just kind of annoyed at me for doing that. But the second run, I think what had happened was a combination of an old radiator cap. That puff of coolant might have been more of a leak than previously thought. Or I have a manual fan on the front of the car, and I think some dead air was in between the intercooler and the radiator. Either way, the car was super overheating on the way up. But I was just like, I'll keep driving it, and the gauge just kept on climbing a little bit and climbing a little bit, and then across the finish line, I was like, oh, shut it off. Yep. And it cooled back down, no issues. So that night, ran back into town, got a new radiator cap, got some more clamps, kind of went around and double clamped all the coolant things, burped it nice and thoroughly. But apparently coolant was the name of the game for all of my event there. But aside from that, the car was running fantastic. It's that the rebuild, luckily I did a good job for the first time of thank you. For the first time of doing that series of rebuild, that was the first time I had really done, the replacement valve seats, doing the valve spring compressor and all of that from the ground up. So luckily, I'd gone online and printed out the entire Subaru factory service manual and kind of followed it bit by bit just to, refresh my memory, because there's a lot of steps in there. But the car was great. Like for the amount of thrashing I did on it, the fact that it just kind of got a little hot, I'll take that.
There you go. Cool. Moving on to Sunday.
Yep.
First run Sunday morning. How did that go for you?
First run on Sunday, because of the overheating, I was like watching all my gauges like a hawk. I was like, all right, which one's gonna move? Which one of you is gonna be an issue? And about halfway up, I was just going super, super, super slow. And I was like, stop watching your gauges and just go. Just stop. Car's running great. Go. So I took the first run super conservatively. Again, it's a long hill. And I wanted to just get a time. And again, car, that was kind of like my third practice run, because again, car, I really hadn't driven the car all that much, and I was just kind of making sure everything ran good and my coolant burp actually did a thing. But yeah, it was just a super like punching a clock, going to work on Monday, make the run up the hill. It was nice and safe.
All right. Run number 2.
I sent it because I did my morning run. I did what I wanted to do in the morning run, which was just get a time. That's you don't as I learned in racing, to finish first you is finish, and I wanted that time on the board so that no matter what happened on run 2, I had something. And went real hard up the hill. I was feeling great. Car was running perfectly. And then a couple turns short of where the tarmac transitions to dirt, cut a little too close to that granite wall and smacked the wheel. And I felt the shudder and kind of, did the turn onto the dirt, and I'm just kind of checking the wheel and like, car's still turning. Okay, well, we'll see how this goes. Keep going. And I kind of made the executive decision to just keep driving hard. I'm not going to save the car by not driving it. So let's go. Car still was, steering wheel still working, brake pedal still working, gas pedal certainly still working. Let's go. And made it through Cragway back onto the tarmac. And I think the bump on the tarmac started to upset the wheel bead, because I think that's where I started to lose air. And about 3/4 of the way up, because there's a lot of the 3 hard turns at the top of the hill are all left-handers. So that passenger side front tire is getting super loaded there. And me bombing in there like I didn't just smack into a wall probably didn't, help anything. And just continued to fight, continued to, push the car. I think the last left-hand turn, I literally just tried rotating the car and it was pushing and just floored it. So the car basically rotated around that flat tire to get it to turn the last left. I said, screw it, man, you keep going. And I think the tire finally blew in earnest about 3 or 4 corners before the end, because I watched my video back and that was when my hands really started shaking. But crossed the finish line, got up to the top. Caleb Pocock, who was running in my class as well, had hit almost the same rock and had the same flat tire in the front. So it was a little catharsis. It was like, hey, you did the same thing I did. But I just really pushed the car probably a little bit harder than I should have, considering the damage that was done. But I knew it was either I was finishing or I was not getting to the top. So, I was gonna find out on the way. And the car is a solid car. It's not gonna. We've danced many times. That car is gonna take care of me.
That's awesome. Now, the interesting thing with your broken collarbone is that a certain celebrity driver that was there made a comment to you that he thought he made bad decisions or made stupid choices or whatever.
Something like that. So yeah, before the opening ceremonies on Sunday, we were all kind of standing around where the stage was, and I made the joke to Travis. I was like, "Hey, I'm taking after your life choices there," and he's like, "Whoa, what would you do?" So I told him I had broken collarbone. He's like, "You're still driving with a broken collarbone?" And then we chatted about it for a bit. So because he had apparently fractured a collarbone the Tuesday before a rally, had it did a surgery on it, had it plated on Wednesday, and then was doing recce and racing on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I had elected to not get surgery. I wanted to, give my shoulder a chance to heal, and I figured about six weeks was enough to, get it to the point where it wasn't an issue, and it wasn't. In the 6 weeks prior to the event, I was wearing all my braces. I was, taking anti-inflammatories. I was icing it. I was, keep doing all the things I could do to get it to fix itself. And co-driving at New England Forest Rally 2 weeks before Climb to the Clouds may have helped it. Not sure. At least my orthopedist didn't say I'd refractured it, so I guess that's a good therapy there. But at least it all of the bouncing around in the rally car kind of made all of the ligaments and the tendons kind of stretch a little bit, so it's still it still can move. It was a little dry run before I started holding a steering wheel with the broken collarbone.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you finished second in class.
Mm-hmm.
So at all things considering, you must have left Gorham, New Hampshire feeling like you won.
I drove down the mountain feeling like I won. That run, even though the top half was a lot slower than I knew I could do it, the run felt good. Like in the conditions, I pushed the car really well. In looking back, and I always look back and say like, oh, what could I have done better? The road itself was technically in better condition in the morning. The sun had gotten onto the tarmac, so it makes it less fast and all of that. But that's like my nitpicky brain of like, oh, you left 2/10 on that corner and whatnot. But at the end of the day, that's a 7.5 mile racetrack, and if you're walking in there trying to do every turn perfectly, you're never going to get there because you're never going to remember all of it. But yeah, that I was grinning ear to ear even at the finish, because it was like that was probably one of the dumbest things I've done, is driving 10/10 on a completely busted wheel and tire. But I was proud of just sending it, just throwing a little bit more caution to the wind and just saying, go for it, attack. Which I haven't really gotten to do in a little while, especially with that car. It felt good to be back pushing the girl around.
So is that right front wheel going to go on the wall as like a monument?
Absolutely. I have a friend of mine who is really good at graphic design, and he's making up a little bumper sticker for me that in this car climbed Mount Washington font, but it's going to be "This wheel died on Mount Washington." And that's going to get stickered on there and then put up on the wall, and that's going to be my own trophy.
That's awesome.
In
That's
addition
really
to
cool.
The trophies they gave.
Let's back up a little bit. How did you get involved in motorsports to start?
So, it's almost ancient history now, but I grew up liking cars, always being interested in cars, and there was one point in high school that I was just flipping through channels on TV, and they had been airing the World Rally Championship. And I saw this blue and yellow liveried car just killing it, just going sideways down the roads. And I was like, that is the coolest thing on the planet. I need to know more about this. And I looked it up. It's a Subaru STI. Oh my God, that's so cool. So I started, watching rally, being really, really passionate about rally, which is why the first car that I had after having a real job, I got a 2004 STI, and loved it. Had it for about 3 or 4 weeks before the turbo completely blew itself apart. And then, emailed around and found a shop, EFI Logics, in Bethel, Connecticut, nearby. That was kind of the shop at the time, and it still is. And brought it over there, and they kind of looked into it and everything, and they're like, it's not just the turbo, it is the engine. It is, this car wasn't really cared for before you bought it. So it was a learning experience there, which, you have to learn sometimes. But it ended up being that I had to start from scratch. So new engine, new turbo. And if I was gonna do it, I was gonna do it, extra. So ended up with a really awesome engine and turbo package that I was making about 360 wheel horsepower, 360 wheel torque. And at the time, EFI was fielding 3 STIs and Evos in NASA wheel-to-wheel racing. And they were like, hey, now that you have all this power and this new engine, why don't you try, taking it somewhere you can actually put it through its paces? Why don't you try these track days? You can show up, they give you an instructor, see if you like it. And of course I signed up, bought myself a cheap little helmet, and thought, oh, it's gonna be like a couple weekends a year, maybe. Like, I'll do it like golf. I'll do it sometimes. And I showed up, and I had an awesome instructor, and that first session I came off the track knowing that that's what I needed to do for the rest of my life. That was like, immediately I knew I needed to do this. I needed to do that more. So ended up doing more and more on track days. In 2013, had the car caged and got my racing license in 2013. Yes, 2013. And just started doing more and more racing from there. It was a slippery slope. That first track day was all I needed to just fall all the way down that slippery slope.
It didn't just nibble on you. It reached out
No.
like jaws and just
Yeah. The boat wasn't even there anymore. It was just crunch, done. That's it. Where'd Amy go? It was immediate, and that's kind of been my experience with racing. There's no one who likes racing just a little bit. It's either you are all in, you love it. If you can't do it all the time, you still have that awesome passion, or it's just like, it's nice, I appreciate it, but it's not for me. And that's okay. But it is one of the most polarizing things that I've run across, is that no one's just like, yeah, I've done a couple track days, it's okay. It's always like, oh yeah. When's the next one?
right. Cool. So what did that lead into for you?
So my claim to fame was in 2013. I was the first rookie out in the Northeast out of competition school that qualified on pole for their first race. And everyone's like, oh, good job. Like at the event, just my feet, like my head was so big that my feet weren't even touching the ground. And everyone kept on saying, don't mess up the start. It's all about the start, and ended up leading the race for a couple laps. And then I saw someone, starting to creep up on me. So I was like, oh, I'll show you, and completely just blew past the braking zone. Thought I had it. I didn't have it, and just ended up going into a wall. And just, I remember sitting there with a crashed car going, you idiot, you were winning. Like, why'd you do that? and came in. I was uninjured. Car was pretty mangled, but the next day that I was kind of loading up and getting the car on the trailer to come home, there was some unsportsmanlike things said about female drivers when they didn't think I could hear them. And if anything, spite is a good motivator. And I ended up rebuilding the car in about a month and a half. I spent the entire drive home on the phone with sponsors and different body shops. I called like 5 different body shops, and they said, oh, well, if it was a street car, it'd be totaled. I'm like, it's not a street car, it's a race car. I just need the wheels to point straight. And finally found a body shop that was like, oh, you just need the frame straightened? Oh yeah, just bring it on Tuesday. And I was like, that's my guys. So they ended up straightening the frame. I put bunches of parts back on and ended up winning the wheel-to-wheel and time attack regional championship in NASA that year. Just because I was like, I wanted to prove that it wasn't just a fluke. And then I continued doing more NASA racing, and then in 2015 I started doing a lot more autocross. Ended up going to nationals for the first time, which is an amazing experience. It's actually happening in next 2 weeks, something like that. I'm unfortunately not going this year because I've already been out of work enough for my collarbone, but maybe next year. And then in 2016, did some more racing, ended up going to NASA Nationals and placing third in both wheel-to-wheel and time attack again. And then in 2017, I had the opportunity to do a lot more endurance racing, which I have found that I absolutely enjoy. It's way more team oriented. In a lot of the shorter racing that I've done, it's very individual. It's all on the driver and whatnot. In both rally and endurance racing, it's so much more focused on teamwork. You can't do well unless you have good crew, you have good communication, you have all of these good factors, and that's something that's really I've enjoyed a lot, and have gotten a chance to race with a bunch of amazing people because of it. And it's fun having a bunch of teammates instead of just a bunch of competitors, but having a bunch of cool competitors is also really fun. It's just a change in dynamic where it's like 5 people working together to drive the car 24 hours or 8, 12, 24 hours constantly. And that was like, I just every year I seem to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And now I'm just kind of taking a break from that. It was a bit of a forced break, but a needed break.
Right. Now, I also saw a picture of you over in Europe. I believe it was at Spa.
It is. That was Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. In, what was it, 2019? Well, started in 2018. But a friend of mine, John Mayer, had sent me a note. He goes over to Germany for business and work a lot. And he sent me a note, and it said, hey, would you be interested in doing an endurance race in Europe? And I don't know a racer that would say no to that. Like that was what vital organ do I have to sell in order to do that? And he kind of explained everything, and it's a Citroen, it's a spec Citroen C1 little baby hatchback thing. And myself, him, and 2 other people kind of pooled all of our funds. It's about $3,000 to $4,000 a piece to buy and prep the car. And he knew a shop over in Germany that could do all of the prep work and, take care of the car and bring it to events and whatnot. And then in 2019 or 2018 rather, we did our first 24 hours at Spa, and that was an amazing experience. Europe just takes a they are all about it, because you would think like, oh, a bunch of really slow Citroens, no one can be excited about that. But there were fans. There's actually it's such a huge event. It's in conjunction with the Deux Chevaux, the 2CV older Citroens. So in addition to our spec C1 Citroen, they have the older Citroens, like the original Citroens running, and then they have prototype little 2CVs running alongside. So it's actually a mixed class racing. So about 120 cars are out on track, at least in the beginning, before attrition kind of takes in. But my favorite memory from there is I was in the car for the sunset stint, and coming up through Eau Rouge onto the big dip and everything. They were setting off fireworks over that corner, and as I'm coming through there was the puffs of color and everything, and I was just looking up going, I've peaked. This is it, man. Like,
I can go happy now, right?
Yeah, just take me out now. That I cannot do anything better than that. But we did end up finishing. I think we did. I think we were something like 40th, because we had started near the back. But again, that event isn't for place. It's more just for the amazing experience, both drive on and off track. On track, everyone is so aggressive. If you are leaving even just a little bit of apex empty, they're gonna try to fit one of those cars on there. So you kind of learn to be a lot more aggressive on track. And then in the pits, it is such a, because there's teams from all the different countries, Belgium, France, Portugal, because they all have their own C1 series that they come to that event, and everyone's like, oh, you're from America, that's cool. You wanted to come all the way over here for our silly event. It's like, no, this is the coolest thing ever. I get to drive 24 hours at Spa. So
Right.
it was always such a cool interaction, no matter who I was interacting with in the pits, because they were like, hey, you're crazy. You're crazy like I'm crazy. Yeah, we're friends now.
There you go.
And that was the blanket experience from everyone. It was just like, yeah, you're cool. All right. You're strapping into these little things. Good job.
2016.
Mhm.
Mount Washington's going to happen in 2017.
Correct.
Kind of had some stuff go on in 16.
I did. I had gotten fired from a job that was super, super stressful. I had come off from working night shift for almost 8 years. So my sleep and life schedule was completely thrown off. And then about 3 days after I had been fired from a job, I lost my apartment. I was not in a good headspace, and it was actually in the span of that, I was doing the 2016 NASA Nationals, and I barely remember it. I spent majority of that event in a bit of a mental breakdown, because it was just get to one race, get to one, just minute to minute, it was just trying to keep a handle on that situation. And I ended up having a pretty bad panic attack right before the beginning of the championship race, because I was just sitting there and I was like, you're unemployed, you don't have a place to live, and if you crash into someone, you're not going to be able to afford their car. What are you doing? You need to stop. You need to just go. And then they were like, oh, everyone roll out from grid. And I was like, all right, I have to drive now. Okay. And I don't like, I remember the race a little bit, but I just remember just not being very mentally present for that. And then finished that first award ceremony, because I had gotten third in the race, and I was like, all right, cool, I got third, I can go home happy. I lived, everything's good. And then the time trial director actually sent me a note, and they're like, hey, you got third again. I was like, no, I didn't go fast enough. Stop that. No. And I'd gotten third again. But the end of that season, that last event, I put way too much pressure on myself to try to podium, try to, do well, and ended up just having a really, really bad mental breakdown. And luckily, both my mom and dad were there, and they found me. I had kind of just, went off into a corner of the paddock, and they were like, where'd Amy go? So my mom finally scooped me up, brought me back to the hotel, and the next week I ended up going to a doctor and getting my first diagnosis of depression. And ever since 2016, I've been kind of working towards that. I feel like I've done some good strides in the years since, but in 2017, the beginning of 2017, I was just starting that journey. Was just getting on medications, and there was, there's that in between time where your brain has to figure out how emotions work again. And there was an event that I got to do, and one of the first endurance events I got to do down in Florida. It's a 6-hour enduro into the night, and we ended up winning. We ended up winning our class. And I just remember like standing there thinking like, oh, this is what happy feels like. Okay, be happy, act happy, pretend to be happy, because my brain was still like trying to figure out how happy chemicals worked again. And that was in January. So, as the year continued, it was just that continuation of like, okay, that's how happy works. Okay, this is how emotions work again. All right, we don't just spend the entire time in the dark. And I was doing well, but in 2017, the Mount Washington event, which continues to be the most special event that has ever happened to me, was when I blew my engine in that first practice run up about 2 corners short of Cragway. The oil pickup had broken, oil starved the engine, and blew the engine. And I was so struggling to just get there, and it blew up, and I was just like, that's it. That's all she wrote. And I took a picture, and I'd had phone service at that time, and posted a picture on social media saying, that's it, my day's done. And they had towed me down to one of the little turnout spots, and I kind of sat there for a couple hours waiting for a tow as practice proceeded, and was just kind of resigned to it. I was like, all right, we got the ups, we got the downs. I actually do remember making a little, like, I had been trying to do like video posts and everything, and I do have the video from me sitting there alone, just trying so hard to hold it together, man. And then I got to the bottom of the hill, and got cell service again, and without my input, completely on their own, a bunch of my friends and family had decided to find me an engine, pool all of their money together, and send me that money so that I could buy the engine and race that weekend. And it like that was such a like a good feeling of just like, hey, people give a shit, that like I honestly didn't win that year. Everyone else won. I just held
Right.
the steering wheel. That's it. And it just ended up calling actually Karen, who I teach with at Women Machine. She was heading up from Boston saying, and I asked her what exit she was at on 93 and told her the exit to get. She went and picked up that engine, and a bunch of people just descended on the car and helped me swap the engine around, and we had it running by 1 a.m. I didn't even miss practice on Saturday. And it was just that, you know, everyone, when you're getting better from mental illness, you know, your therapist, your doctor and everything go, you know, people care about, you know, you always hear that people care about you, but when you're in that darkness, you don't really believe them. And that event was proof to me that I have so many awesome people in my life that care about me. And like that, I can't explain that away. I can't, you know, rationalize that away. That was proof that so many people in my life are awesome. And you know, that is something that I get to carry around with me ever since, is that feeling of love from the racing community that I can't even put into words how grateful I am for that.
I've always heard since I was a little kid, growing up in drag racing. I started going when I was like 9 years old. I'm 52 now. That when you really think your competitors don't give a shit about you, it's when they're all going to show up and go, "We got it."
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, that's what has made the racing experience so great, is that you come for the cars, you stay for the people,
Right.
because the people are amazing. And you know, everyone helps everyone else out. You know, it's you know, it's that respect breeds respect, because if you're always willing and ready to help all of the other competitors, everyone else is just as willing and ready to help you. And we all, you know, none of us want to just win because someone broke. You know,
I
we
want to
want
beat
to,
you the right way.
you know, yeah, it's that competitive spirit, it's that sportsmanship, it's that good camaraderie that is so awesome, that I've always had a huge respect for.
So you finished up Climb to the Clouds 2017. How did you end up finishing that year?
I finished third in high performance showroom stock. Uh, uh, the joke was me and Seth, who were he had unfortunately had a rod bearing failure on the same practice run that I did. So the running joke was that the third place step in high performance showroom stock was decided in the pits that year. I was willing. It wasn't that I was willing. It was that everyone else was willing to have me do a engine replacement in the pits. So I, you know, at the behest of everyone, I couldn't just say no. I couldn't just back down. I was like, all right,
Let's
let's,
do it.
you know, after I finished sitting on my trailer and crying, and you know, then I was like, all right, let's swap this engine. Let's go.
Now that's
So
that's still this car too, as well. Is that correct?
correct. That is my car. That was my first race car. That's been with me since 2009. I was the one who was silly and, had caged this, weld a cage into it, and built it into a race car that it is today.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So not only road racing, autocrossing.
Yep.
You've also dabbled in some rally stuff.
Yep.
Talk a little bit about that.
So again, my love for racing started in rally. I ended up road racing for many years, but I always wanted to do rally. The cage in my car is rally spec, but just never had the budget or the availability or whatnot. So I ended up crewing for both Erica Ditota and Christy Carlson in the years prior. And then what was it, 2018? Yes, 2018 or 2017? 2018. Margaret Sharon, who also raced this year at Climb to the Clouds, asked me to co-drive for her for New England Forest Rally. And of course I agreed, because my kind of allure in co-driving is that I do a lot of driving instruction. So I do a lot of coaching and helping people go faster. And if I can call notes while doing driving instruction, I'm pulling double duty. So we ended up doing a couple sprints to kind of get my feet wet and whatnot, and see how well we worked together. And then in New England Forest Rally that year, we did a really awesome job day one because we were a regional entry, and ended up finishing third in class for that. But then the following Saturday, the first stage, we had suffered an unfortunate engine failure. So of course we had to come back in 2019. So that year we completely sent it on Concord Pond, and on the second run through, Margaret slid just a hair wide, and ended up tagging a tree. And you can actually hear in the video of me just going, "We're fine," and just went back to calling notes. And she was like, "Hey, the car feels weird. Should I stop?" And I was like, and keep going. And we finished the stage only a couple seconds slower than our first pass, and got out, inspected it. The rear suspension was a little damaged, and the rear quarter was a lot of damaged. So texted the crew back at service, and service was our next destination after Concord. It's like, "Hey guys, we're gonna need lateral links and probably a trunk and something like that." So they knew that we were coming in. Our crew did a phenomenal job getting us together, and we got in and out in 30 minutes. They replaced the lateral links, the rear tail light. We rewired it to make sure that, because cars have to be road legal in order to compete in rally, because we're driving on public roads. We ratchet strapped the trunk closed and made sure everything else was good, and off we went. And I believe we ended up second in class, or second or third in class in 2019, even despite the tree slowing us down just a little bit.
Stupid trees jump right out in front of you.
It's what was annoying is there were two trees. There was like one tree that was really close, and then there was one that was a little farther away. And I remember glancing up because I felt us kind of doing the slide, and I was like, "How close are we to those trees?" Oh, and I thought we missed the first one. I thought we were good, but then we tagged the second one. I was like, "Oh, we hit the second one." But we pressed on regardless. That's what you do in rally. You just keep going.
There you go. So fast forward to, let's see, that was 2019. 2020 yep. Kind of went for everybody.
Yeah, that was a wash for everyone.
So we'll throw that year out the window.
Hmm.
Now you got to do some more co-driving a few weeks ago.
Absolutely. So at the beginning of this year, one Miss Kathy Moody wanted to do New England Forest Rally. That was one of her bucket list events. And since Margaret has now dedicated co-driver, which I'm really happy for her, since my schedule is so all over the place, I could only, sometimes co-drive. But Kathy's like, hey, I want to do New England Forest Rally for the first time, and you've done it a couple times, so you want to do it? And I was like, of course. So we decided to plan a couple hill climbs, plan a couple sprints for me to sit right seat and kind of work with her a little bit more to see, what her note calling, wants and needs were. Ended up having a great time. It's always a good time in a race car. Can't complain. But then at the second, because the first hill climb we did was just kind of like an acquaintance run. It was like, okay, I'm gonna call notes and you're gonna tell me what you need and figure it all out. And then we did a rally sprint. We're starting to really start, I was started to do more driving instruction where it's like, hey, why are we lifting? That is my catchphrase, is why. If you have a good reason, I am open to hearing the reason that you are lifting, but if you don't have a reason, then why are we lifting? So that's usually my instruction style, is like, why are you doing the things that you're doing? If you have a good reason, I would like to hear it. But if I'm asking, usually there's probably not a good reason for it. But the last hill climb that we did at Burke, Kathy wanted to break 3 minutes, and in Zed, it's not a bad threshold to break, because it's older than I am and we're on all seasons. So it's like, all right, let's figure out what we can do. Spent Saturday kind of working everything together, and then I kind of had an aha moment where it's like, all right, Kathy, on the sighting run, because every hill climb in the morning, everyone can kind of do a little familiarization run. It's like, let me drive, you sit in the passenger seat, because sometimes it's easier to instruct where it's like, do as I say instead of me explaining things. And since Kathy's experience comes from rally and rallycross, her car control and all of that is amazing, but the track stuff, which is where I come in, where you study lines, you study apexes, where are your entry points, where are your braking points, that was where we needed to work. And as soon as I finished the FAM run driving and explaining stuff, she was like, I got it. It was that aha moment, which I love as an instructor, because it's awesome to have your student do that, where it's like, oh, I got it, yes. And ended up screwing up the hill. I think it was like 256 or something like that. Really good time. We ended up getting rain, so we didn't better that time, but it was still a good time. So we went into New England Forest Rally all ready and set, and had a great Friday. The Concord Pond did an awesome job on the loop back on stage 4, or stage 5, sorry, forgot we added a stage this year. It was starting to get dark, and it was dark enough that halfway to 3/4 of the way through, I couldn't see the notes. And Kathy, usually when your co-driver is like, hey, I'm lost, I don't know where I am, you slow down. But Kathy apparently didn't get the memo and actually went faster with me going, where am I in the notes? But that was fun. And then we were having a phenomenal day on Saturday until poor little old Zed decided that he just didn't want to go anymore. And on one of our transits, we hit a bump and he died. He went to sleep, and ended up getting flat towed out, because we tried all of the different things. It had fuel, It had crank, it had power, it had spark, it had, why was it not firing up? And got flat towed out. And someone at the end of the stage came up to us and was like, "Hey, what happened?" And Kathy's like, "Oh, let me show you," and cranks it, and the car started up like nothing was wrong. So as old cars are wont to do. And so we're like, all right, that's weird. Well, there's service after this. So let's go into service, see if we can find the issue, and then rejoin the rally so we can actually like at least finish the rally. Because that's, it's what you want to do. And spent service, jiggling wires, thumping around, trying to find the issue. Couldn't find any issue. All right, I guess it fixed itself. And started the transit for the last stage. And then as we hit the uphill bumps on the dirt section to get to the stage, died again. And it was like, we came so close, but apparently Zed just didn't want to go. So it was something electrical gremlin, which was frustrating to retire because of that, but at the same time, it wasn't anything either of us did. So, it's just like, okay, the car just decided that it didn't want any more. I didn't make a mistake in calling the notes. Kathy didn't make a mistake and, hook us into a ditch or whatnot. So, we left with our heads held high, but we still want to go back next year and finish the rally, because that's the whole point. You want to finish.
So what does the rest of 2020 look like for Amy Dilks?
I'm going back into hibernation. So currently my main goal is to finally secure a construction loan and finish up my Stripes Racing World Headquarters. At the end of last year, I ended up buying a piece of land, and I want to put a little house, big garage on it. Because for the last all of the years, I've been renting a very small 2-bay garage behind someone's house and living in an apartment. So prepping a full-blown race car in effectively someone's driveway isn't the best. And it got to the point where I was like, all right, I got to do something about this. So I had planned to take 2020 kind of slow anyway. So, sometimes life finds a way. And right now I'm just, chilling out. I might do a couple autocrosses as the fall gets closer. I'm gonna be at Wicked Big Meet September 12th in Connecticut, because that is one of the biggest Subaru festivals in the country at this point. But I'll be at the Subi Girls booth there, and
That's at Stafford Springs, right?
Correct.
Yep.
It got big enough that they had to move it around, and then Stafford Springs has been the home track for it for a while. And I will have I think I'm gonna make a little display for the tire for it to be with the car in the booth. Since it just makes a good story,
Right. Now, when you autocross, do you autocross your Subaru, or do you have another car that you autocross, or do you go back and forth?
So I've autocrossed the Subaru. I have also autocrossed anything that anyone has thrown me the keys to. That's the nice thing about autocross, is that was one of the first times I really got to drive someone else's car in anger. And I've gotten to drive everything from a rental car from an unnamed rental company. We called it the Malabeast. It was like a newer Chevy Malibu, and it was okay. It had 2 different brands of tires on each side of the car, but she did okay. When your race car breaks, you go rent a car. all the way through to fully prepped SCCA Nationals. I've raced a RX-8. I've raced a what else have I raced? I've raced another RX-8. And then the year that I won the championship, I actually got to jump into a F-prepared S2000, which, if you're unfamiliar with SCCA classing, basically it is a S2000 shaped tub with a built engine and very, very wide, very sticky Hoosier A7s, and I could get away with murder in that car. And what was very funny is that I had met the owner before. I had just met him, over the internet before the event, and showed up on Wednesday for practice. Drove the car a little bit on the practice course. Thursday rolls around. We're through our second of 3 runs on one course, and I'm winning the class by like 2 seconds. And a couple people came up and they were like, "Wow, how long have you been driving this car?" And I was like, yesterday.
An hour and a half.
Yeah, like since yesterday. But yeah, that was a super, super fun car. But yeah, that's the really nice thing about autocross is that since it's a bit lower risk and lower stress on the car, I've gotten to drive other people's cars, and that's a skill all on its own, is being able to jump into someone else's car that they know very well, but being able to either match times or drive as quickly as they can in a car that you've just met.
If there was an event that came down the road that you wanted to do, what would be your first choice of events that you've never done? I have a funny feeling I know what at least 2 of them may be. I'm going to see if your answer is what I'm thinking in my head.
Well, see, I don't like saying dream event, because like Mount Washington was a dream event for me like 5 or 6 years ago, and here we are. But I would like to do the 24 Hours of Nürburgring at some point. That seems just like a really fun. When I was over in Europe one time, I did get to drive the ring, and super fun. I did make a cheeky Facebook post after my first Climb to the Clouds saying that Climb to the Clouds is more fun than the ring, and I stand by that answer. But other than that, I would love to start doing like rally raid kind of stuff. Like the Mint 400, Baja 1000, stuff like that. Again, just because of the endurance, it's the nice meeting of endurance racing, teamwork, managing the car, making sure the car is going fast enough to win, but not, holding it back enough to not break anything, or not break anything too seriously that you can't just repair it and whatnot.
To get to the end, right?
Absolutely.
How about the Rolex?
I would love to do the Rolex. It's like that's the pie in the sky ones, because I would love to do something like Rolex, Le Mans, any of that. But I also like to be realistic, and at this point, a seat in Rolex or Le Mans, exactly, is orders of magnitude more wallet space than I do not have. So I try to set my sights on events that I can actually do. One of the events that I would love to make happen, been trying to talk to a couple people, is actually going to Australia, since there's an RX-8 Cup series that races there, and they do the Bathurst. I think it's a 6-hour at the Bathurst. And I found out about that like a couple years ago, because one of the endurance racing cars that I've raced is an RX-8. And we started talking back to the guys in Australia, like, hey, that's really cool. We'd love to, you come up and race with us, and then we go down, race with you, huh? You know, that was before the world ended, but
Right,
we
right.
will see. There's nothing but time. But yeah, like I'd love to start branching out to different continents as well, just to, you know, see what other racing is, because it's something that I've found is just that racing is that, like, language everyone understands. It doesn't matter if I can speak to you, you know, you kind of understand, like, oh, race cars. You know, like I ended up meeting one of the drivers that was in a documentary. I think it was like Speed Sisters or something like that, where it was this racing team in Saudi Arabia, I believe. I might be misquoting it. This was like years ago, but you know, I'd come up to her and we, you know, I was talking with her interpreter and whatnot, but then her interpreter stepped away, and I ended up just pulling up my phone and showing her a picture of my race car, and then she's like, oh, and she pulled up her phone and showed me a picture of her race car, and we spent like 10 minutes just showing each other cool pictures of our race cars on our phones. No common language between us, but we got it. And that was such a cool experience.
You spoke the same language, but
Yeah,
even though you couldn't speak the same language.
correct. We surfed the same brainwave,
There you
and
go.
that's cool, because it's a commonality between all of the racers. It's like, if you're silly enough to strap into a car and go race it, we're friends.
Very cool. Well, how about the people that help make this hot rod right here go?
Absolutely. My dad definitely helped me, since he's the one that got to, you know, help me put the engine together and get going. And then EFI Logics, who definitely tuned it and make sure that I don't get myself into too much trouble. And then Applied Graphics, who did the amazing wrap. It would not be the purple tire eater without the purple wrap, because it was silver from the time before. But then my dad came to watch me race, and he was like, hey, I can't pick you out. You're a silver car. I can't really pick you out. I'm like, I'm gonna fix that.
We got that covered.
Absolutely. But yeah, that just so many people, fans, friends, fellow racers, everyone's just so awesome in the racing community. At least in my experience. I've been very fortunate.
When Climb to the Clouds comes back around in either 2 to 3 years, we're going to see you there again.
Absolutely. Maybe faster, I hope. Hopefully with 4 wheels at the finish, not 3.
Well, that's cool. Well, Amy, like I said, when I first started talking to you, you know, I read your story. I was very impressed about everything that I read, and I, you know, going through your pictures and stuff like that. And I'm very happy that we were able to get together and talk some. It was an eye-opening experience to your background, your career, you know, what you want to do down the road.
Yeah, the hashtag that I started many years ago and continue is race all the things. I don't like limiting myself as like, oh, I just do this or I just do that. And again, what's awesome about Climb to the Clouds is that it's this nice mesh of so many motorsports that you have to be able to apply up that mountain, that, you know, doing all these different events and types of events and surfaces and cars and whatnot really helps, because, you know, that is a very dynamic race course right there.
Absolutely. I've never raced at it, but I've driven up and down that road numerous times.
Yeah, that it's always different. It's never the same road. Even if you run it back to back, it is a different road every time.
World's worst weather, it can change at a heartbeat.
Absolutely.
But even in, you know, June, July, August, when you guys are up there. So
Oh, it was very cold that first run. And I got to about 3/4 and there was a big wall of cloud coming towards me. And I was like, you stay over there. I'm going to finish before the clouds come in.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If people want to check out your racing adventures and just kind of follow you along, where can they find you on the interwebs?
Absolutely. I am Stripes Racing on all platforms, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook mostly. But at Stripes Racing and on everything. I keep it simple.
Very cool. Well, Amy, it was awesome talking to you. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to come on and hang out with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, Amy Dilks, everybody. Great job at Mount Washington, and just keep it up, kiddo.
Absolutely.
You got this.
Thank
All
you.
right. Have a good night.
You too.
All right. All right, everybody. We are out of here for tonight. If you guys like this, please let me know. We'll do more stuff with the road racing and the hill climb and rally guys. I'm going to have a YouTube link up. I'll send it to you in just a little while, Amy, as soon as I get it loaded up and everything. We're out of here, everybody. Have a great night. Talk to you soon.